Hello everybody, my name is Pej. I'm the interventionist that also works in the field of addiction and mental health. Let's talk about psilocybin magic mushrooms. Shrooming. What are they? Where do they come from? Who does them? Why do they do them? Magic mushrooms, sometimes in some circles called shrooms. My experience with them was that back in the day we hung out with hippies. Um, they're the total hippie drug. Basically, they're the mushrooms. It's fungi. It grows in pastures and meadows, and people dry them out, um, and they have this certain euphoria. They're sort of like a mild version of LSD, and you can definitely see patterns in your mind. You can hallucinate from them. You can go on journeys, and a lot of people do them just for that same um, purpose. They love shrooming. We loved shrooming way back in the day. How do we obtain them? Some people told us they were grown in cow pastures. I don't really know. I never grew them myself. All I know is that we would get them. They were in a baggie. They smelled horrific. We would put them on top of pizza, or we would drink them with orange juice. And when you actually did it, you could go on major trips, and you could have really good trips, and then sometimes you could have bad trips too. I didn't really think it was possible until I had one, but it wasn't something that we did every single weekend or all the time. It wasn't a regular thing. It was just fun to in our early 20s, late teens, early 20s, to go out and just meander, like going on in paths and journeys, and we would go all night long or all day long out in nature and look at certain plants and trees and anything that was natural. It was a lot more enhanced to look at those and hallucinate and kind of just go into our own intergalactic mind warp, I like to say. I know that it was fun until it wasn't fun. Sometimes it made my stomach churn when I would do it, and it was something that like we had to try it at least once, and we did it a few times. I think throughout my life I maybe did it a dozen times, maybe a little bit more than that. But you know, it makes you hallucinate. A lot of people will get their hands on it and they'll do it and they'll try it out. It depends. It's part of the journey if you're experimenting with drugs. Does it become addictive? I don't really think it becomes addictive unless you want to do it, regularly. It's not something that like you don't grow a physical addiction to, but it just, it's a different type of drug. It definitely falls into hallucinogen category, and people like to do that um, because they like to go on journeys and just escape and go into different thought patterns, if you will. So yeah, that's mushrooms for you. I do want to talk about one of my experiences with mushrooms. Is I used to just do mushrooms alone for a long time, but then later on in the 90s when we started going to raves and hanging out and doing lots of ecstasy, there was this thing that people would say called hippie flipping, where you would actually like mix the ecstasy with mushrooms, so you had a sort of stimulant and a hallucinogen, and you just go on these wild trips and see all kinds of stuff. And I remember, we'd go to these raves that were out in the woods in the forest, and just we would go on journeys, and each one of us would have our own individual trip, and later on we'd compare notes and just talk about those trips. Luckily, not a lot of people get addicted to mushrooms. I mean, it's not something that I commonly hear about. This person is doing mushrooms all the time and they have a problem with mushrooms. It's definitely an experimental drug, I believe. It's not something that people get hooked on for a long time. But if you do have a loved one that's ever struggling with it, there is hope out there. There are people that go down the path of hallucinogens and grow a liking to them. And if you ever need help with that, we can help you out. So if you like this video on mushrooms, you can also check out our other stuff on TikTok at Pej Interventions, as well as Pej's Recovery Corner, which is our podcast where we talk about anything and everything that's recovery related.